Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and happy 4th of July. Although by the time you guys see this, 4th of July will be over, but it's Independence Day for North America. And I did read some. So I actually today decided to read some things that have to do with that. But let's see. That kind of have to do with it. I had just bought this from the roast office. Democracy in America, 2 essays on America, by Alexis de Tocqueville. I don't know how to pronounce this author's last name. I'm guessing it's French. But, I read the first two chapters, and it's definitely interesting. It's not but it's obviously a nonfiction book that, you're only going to be interested in if it's like you're interested in U.S. history. And it's nonfiction, so it's not even like, it's not exciting for those of you who would not be interested in the subject matter. It's just straightforward talking about how America was founded and everything like that. And as a person who is interested in U.S. history, it's definitely intriguing and engaging to read about, which this is stuff I did know about because, you learn about it in school and all that, but, it's one of those subjects where I feel like I wish I learned more. Like sometimes I wish I had taken more history classes, at least in college, because obviously in, elementary school through high school, you're kind of limited to what you can, you're whatever the textbook gives you. You learn whatever the textbook gives you. I think history, as far as history goes, I almost think that what we learn in school is kind of a watered down version, or like a Reader's Digest version of history. That's a little, might be a little sugar coated or summed up, basically. So, that's what happened. So, for a reader, that's something I can easily remedy by buying books about it. So, I'm also reading that. And then also, I picked up this as well, The Letters of John and Abigail Adams, which when I was looking for this on my Goodreads currently reading, because I had started already and got to page 11, it was really annoying because when you search for something, you have to be really specific, type the exact title if you're going to find it, because it can't be some variation, because there are a lot of books out there that might have a similar title, but it won't be your exact book. So it can be a little annoying, because then you have to remember, okay, what's the exact title? And, if it's just one word, the, it's really? So, all because I've got the word the, it's not right. They don't find the right book. But anyway, this is basically the letters between John and Abigail Adams, which, they're really interesting. They're more romantic, I think, than people realize. And, not like the ooey-gooey, lovey-dovey kind of stuff, but, there's a lot of respect and admiration between the two of them, and affection. Although John Adams was not really good at showing, really struggled at showing that, I think. And he wasn't good at being a dad. I think he did love his kids, he just wasn't. But also, I think a lot of dads back in the, for the 21st century, it was very much the relationship, or at least this is what I see, in the media and stuff, when they have these historical stories, sometimes dads aren't as loving or as openly affectionate. And maybe this is because my dad has always been that kind of person, that kind of guy. He's very affectionate, openly affectionate, very involved in our lives. And, all the dads, most of the dads I see in my life, they seem like they're very involved in their kids' lives. But it's always weird to me to see where you have the father. Although, I mean, when Jane Austen writes her book, some of her dads have a very pretty good relationship with their, like, Elizabeth and Mr. Bennet have a good relationship. Although he's not good with although, like, Lizzie is obviously a favorite to him because she's so much like him in personality. But it's just weird to me when I find out that, I see a father not being as affectionate and just being very formal with his children. That, like, because that's not what is in my life. So it's always, like, surprising. And it's something that I don't get, how a dad cannot be. But, I'm from this modern era, the end of the 20th century, going into the 21st century. So things are a little different. But, anyway, he's telling her, he's telling her exactly what's going on. He doesn't shout, like, he doesn't coddle her. He tells her exactly what's going on. He knows that she's smart, she's highly intelligent, and she will understand what he's talking about. There's a lot of respect and a very mutual relationship between the two of them. So, but I remember I did play in, like, middle school. I did an assignment where I was playing Abigail Adams and did, like, a presentation. It was a thing that we did outside where we all were famous historical figures, and we would have a big, board and stuff, kind of like those things you use on a science fair project, those boards where that open up, and I cannot think of what those things are called. But I feel like I didn't do a good job because I think I was really nervous. And I wish I had got a second chance to do something like that, but because I'm just a very shy person. And I'm not comfortable around, like, a audience. Like, I can talk to a couple people. It's not like I can't completely interact with, because, I'm fine at, when I'm at work and I have to approach one of my managers or talk to my coworkers, but it's just when in front of an audience, I tend to panic. So, but yeah, I would never be able to be the president, a president or someone in charge. But yeah, if I had to pick, John Adams probably next to, my favorite president. And then there's, I find Benjamin Franklin really interesting. I would love to read, like, I think there's a biography on Ben Franklin or something. A Penguin Classics edition of him. So I would love to read that. Oh, he's definitely very much a ladies' man. So I read a little bit of those today, and I think I'll probably continue with this one, but I'll be reading the Essays on American Democracy on and off throughout the rest of the year, probably. That's the problem, there's a lot of nonfiction, that's how it is with chunky books. And speaking of chunky books, so when I was visiting my sister, it was my niece's birthday this past weekend, or it was actually on Thursday, but we celebrated it over the weekend, and I'll be going back for which I was surprised that my work let me have that off, but I do have I have a week in between where I'm working, where they can put me on the schedule almost every day, so, but I'll be going back to see them and celebrate her brother's birthdays as well, so that will be, although his other grandmother was talking, she was asking, where she was talking about, she had asked the younger boy, what does he want to do for his birthday, and, which is so cute, because it's so funny and cute, because she told me he was like, he just wanted a quiet birthday, he didn't want a big party or anything, which I think is so cute, especially as someone who does not mind that kind of birthday either. although I was definitely one of those kids that, like sleepovers, but just with my core group of friends, I'm not a big party. I don't like big parties. My sister was the one who would have, like, the big parties for her birthdays. But, I thought that was kind of... Me and the younger boy, the second one, the middle child, are very much... I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. But his older brother is going to have a pool party. So, we'll go over there. And this time, at least, I will be able to go, So, I will be more prepared, because it seemed like the last couple times we've gone to visit my sister, I always have forgotten something. And I forgot something that was kind of important this time. And the last time I did forget something that was a little bit important, but it was something more... but I feel like this time, this thing was a little more important than I forgot. So, now I'm like... I did put on my phone in the notes section, I made a list of things I gotta remember to bring this visit. So, anyway, so I spent most of it, I brought quite a few books with me, of course. Like, I try not to, but I can't help it. But I'm mostly focused on this book. I finally finished it. First one in the first book in the Dark Shore series, Peace and Turmoil, by Elliot Brooks. Which, I love this. It was great. Now, of course, I am a fan of Elliot Brooks and her channel. So, I did try to include some critiques. But I generally I'm not good at critiquing things. So far, I don't read a lot of books that I don't absolutely love. I mean, like, occasionally I will, like, or, and I've been trying to try different types of things anyway, also. Like, a book that I ended up DNFing, I'll talk about in a minute, I was trying. So, but I rarely have, like, anything below 3 stars. And I always feel like, I always feel self-conscious about that, because it's like, I've watched videos in the past by certain people saying, you can't like it would be totally impossible to have every single book you read being 5 stars. That wouldn't make any sense. So I'm always self-conscious and feeling like, and I was giving this book 5 stars, and I was like, maybe I should lower it down to 4 stars. Because, and I know other people probably tell me that, if you think it's 5 stars, then give it 5 stars. So I might change it back to 5 stars. I don't know. But there were things, I did say I did genuinely feel like it was kind of slow in the beginning. But that was, we were being introduced to the world and these new characters. And I did wish we had more perspectives that were on, like, people, like, the citizens of these kingdoms that are in this world. Like, citizens that weren't exactly, like, weren't part of the royal family, weren't a soldier or a priestess, but were, like, just regular citizens. That, because my whole thing, I feel like citizens, the public are the people who suffer the most in these kinds of stories, because they didn't do anything. They're not involved in the politics. Regular people might commit crimes and stuff and, do bad things, but mostly they're innocent. And sometimes they're ignorant of what's going on, like the politics. But, so I would love to see, I think that would provide an interesting, relatable perspective. So that's one of the, so I tried to come up with some things I didn't like. But even then, that was not, I'm not good at finding anything wrong with books. I mean, there are times when, after I watch someone else's review, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of agree with that, or I kind of see where you're going with that, or why. But it's not until after I watch someone else's review, someone points something out, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. So sometimes I do need to watch someone else's review just to, But anyway, I just happen to really enjoy this, And yes, I'm a fan of Elliot Brooks' channel. I like what she has to say about books. and I had a really good time. But now I am, of course, probably someone that you could say that I rate books by how I feel about them, my emotions when I'm reading them, and I enjoy this. I had a good time with this. Um, I like quite a lot of the characters. I like politics in a fantasy setting. I may not like reading nonfiction about our politics, but I do like when in fantasy politics. I find that always interesting when, with magic and, you know, I guess because it's not my world, so it's different. So I'm like escaping because I read for escapism in my personal, my personal opinion. And, I also, I thought the magic system was really cool. The whole elemental magic system and the fiends really creepy and, weird and stuff. And, oh, and, but anyway, I'm going to stop talking about it because I want to do talk about it during my wrap up or whatever, my August and July, August wrap up. But I am so glad. I'm so happy. This book took me a long time to read, and like I said, that it's, and again, I've said this before. When most of the time, it's not because I'm not enjoying it, but if it's a longer book, I'm gonna be I might put it down for long periods of time. And again, it's not because I'm not enjoying it. It's just, it's a long book, and sometimes I have trouble committing, and I have so many other books to read. That's why I always have that problem where I'll pick out a bunch of books, like if we go out of town to visit family, or, just in general, because I can't narrow it down. So, I'm trying to do that. That's one of the reasons why I want to make that videos. I want to kind of talk about that and how, I don't know if I'm the only one who has this problem where, like, if I pre-plan my TBR and try to plan ahead of time, I will end up picking like 20 books to that I'm like thinking that I want to read, or books that have been sitting on my shelf for a while that I feel like, okay, I need to get back to those books, or books, books I just bought. I also want to read those, and then so I pick out a bunch of books, and I know I'm not going to get to all of them. And then I get to the point where I can't decide which one I want to focus on. And the last problem I have is if it's a book this long, if I get a bunch of books that are this long, then there's no way I'm going to ever get all of them done within the month. And now, I still probably have more free time than most people. Because I work part-time, and so it's not like I don't have time, I still have plenty of time, and then I get a 15-minute break, so I have a lunch bag where I put a little sandwich for to eat during my 15-minute break, and then I also put a book in there. And my mom last time, and then my mom bought me a new one a couple years ago that is like more this way, because the original one I got when I first started this job was one of these that goes this way, and I had trouble getting books this size in there. So then when she had to get me a new one, she got one that goes this way. It's like this, so that it's easier for me to get books this size in there. Especially since I started buying, I started like letting go of my mass markets and, sticking to this size book. So yeah, I ended up finishing this today, but I read most of it while I was visiting my sister, which I was very happy about, especially since there were a couple nights where I don't know why this happens, but there are times when sometimes, not all the time, but there are times when I stay up later than usual, and I just get really queasy and nauseous feeling. So it's like, okay, maybe I need to go lay down. And once I lay down, it might take a while, but I still end up going, I end up feeling a lot better once I lay down. And maybe when I drink some water or something. So maybe it's like dehydration, or, sitting down at the computer all day, because like when I go to my sister's, I spend even more time sitting on the computer. Or when I'm at my grandma's house, I spend even more time sitting at my computer. because it's a different environment where I'm not as, it's not as like easy for me to get up and have a reason to do other things. Like at my house, we have the back porch and the front porch for me to go outside and read. I run early in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, depending on my work schedule when I have to be in at work. And then we have our community pool, which is easy for me to get to with just walking distance, and so is the library, and so is the Roast Office bookshop. So, and then I can watch whatever I want to watch. I have all my DVDs, and, I have access to Netflix and Disney Plus and everything, and I don't have to worry about little kids. Because I love my nieces and nephews, but of course when they're around, there's some things I can't watch. Same thing with my dad. I think both my dad and I, Mom doesn't mind it as much, but I think both my dad and I get a little, a little anxious, not impatient, well, yes, I don't know what the word, impatient, because we can't watch what we want to watch. Because these kids are like 7 and like 6, and 5. Like in 7 and 5, so we can't just watch anything. And of course, one of the nights when I was feeling really queasy and thinking, okay, I'll watch one more video, then I'm gonna go to bed. As soon as I get back in there, my dad has turned on the TV. Swear. I'm sleeping in my sister and brother-in-law's basement. They have it all set up to a nice little carpeted, nice little area, little play area for the kids, but there's also like a bathroom and with a shower, and like there's a bedroom back there, so that's where we stay every time we come to visit, or whenever anytime they have guests, I think they stay there. And there's a TV down there, and there's a TV in the room, and there's a TV in the main living area. And of course my dad, and unfortunately, although where the TV is in the room, it's like you have the bed, and then there's a TV on over here. So it's like, it's kind of hard to watch TV unless you lay a certain way in there. So my dad, wanted to go out in the living area, and I was all ready for bed, getting ready, and then it was like, oh, okay, so now I have to wait a little while longer before I go to, and I guess I could have laid down, but yeah, it was kind of annoying. The good news, at least this time though, it'll be just me and my mom, so I can sleep in the bed with her this time instead of on the couch, which, although that couch is really great, that couch is very comfortable. I had no problem sleeping on that couch. So it was just that, that night, particularly, my dad was like, oh, I'm gonna watch some TV. But yeah, so anyway, I say that because I usually read in bed before I go to sleep, before I officially go to sleep. But because of how I was feeling, I couldn't concentrate on the book. I was only able to read one chapter. But what's nice about is her chapters are pretty short. So some of them are only even half a page. So that really helped to get through a lot of this, Anyway, so I also read Pride and Prejudice. This is the Jane Austen book club, the first book that they are reading together. The people that, in the Jane Austen July read along. So this is the group reading along with Lady Susan, which, like I said in my TBR for Jane Austen July, I'm probably not going to do Lady Susan because I don't have a copy that's appealing to read. So maybe one day I'll buy a copy, but and I am on chapter 14, the first volume. So I looked, like I always do, see, how many chapters are, because granted I have read this, but this is only my second or third reading of this. But it's been years, so I didn't remember how long the book is. So I did, and I saw it was only 19 chapters. The last chapter is chapter 19, and then I looked, and I'm on chapter 14, and I'm like, and then I look at how much left I have to read, and then I realized, oh, I forgot, it's actually more than one volume in one book. It's separated into volumes, so I was like, oh, So I don't actually have 9. This doesn't exactly have 19 chapters. It's just maybe that last part has 19 chapters. But anyway, so I'm still in volume 1, which so we have met. Darcy and Elizabeth have met and crossed paths. Jane has been sent by her mom to go visit the Bingleys, and tells her to walk because maybe and it's getting ready to rain, so maybe if she might get sick and have to stay there. So, and Elizabeth, because she ended up getting sick after all, and Elizabeth goes to see her, and this is really like I just feel so bad for them because I'm just so uncomfortable. I mean, there's only one person so that she knows for sure doesn't mind her company, and that's Charles Bingley. He's cool with it. He's just happy that she's there to take care of Jane and everything, and that he thinks it's really sweet how much they care about each other. Meanwhile, his sisters are constantly berating Elizabeth and trying to get Darcy to agree with them, which she kind of does. Like, I think she baffles Darcy. Because she's so out there and stuff. It's always interesting, those kinds of relationships, like Darcy and Elizabeth, and then all the other rom-coms that kind of have that same formula. It's funny to see the progress of those kinds of couples, how they start out, and then eventually they get past their not being bewildered and not understanding each other and grow to fall in love and everything. It's such interesting to watch that growth. And watching all the in-between stuff. I mean, that's why like most people, I'm such a big fan of Anthony and Kate from Bridgerton, because it's the same story. They're very much Elizabeth and Darcy in Bridgerton, where it's like they don't get along at first. They don't agree with each other. But they are attracted to it, and they keep being drawn to each other, and they grow and evolve, and just, like, they're definitely, obviously, I cannot remember the author of the books, but she was obviously inspired by Pride and Prejudice. I mean, I think the whole series was inspired by Pride and Prejudice, or maybe inspired by Jane Austen, but I think the Viscount Who Loved Me, which is not Viscount, it's Viscount. I don't know I don't think it's Miss Mojo. That channel, they always pronounce, and I don't think that's the only one. There's other of those channels on YouTube that do, like, the top 10 or top whatever, or that do those, they can never pronounce it correctly. They always say Viscount. It's like, no, it's pronounced Viscount. It's like, that just shows how those people don't do their research. That's just one of the smaller ways it shows that those people don't ever do their research. They just narrate what they're told to narrate. Now, of course, some of those, I think that maybe some of those kinds of videos they do, the narrator actually does the research. Like, I think What Culture was a lot better, used to begin at that, although apparently one of the narrators left What Culture, and now it's not the same anymore. Although I don't watch a lot of those. I only watch the ones I'm interested in. But anyway. So yeah, so I'm just finished the part when Jane and Elizabeth have come back from the Bingleys, and their cousin, Mr. Collins, has arrived. And he's already being like, oh, you guys, your house is so lovely, and, is being overly friendly and complimentary towards them, and it's just very awkward. And he's trying so hard to gain their affections. And even Miss Bennet is all like, and that's, of course, because they know they already are set not to like him, because he's going to take their, he will inherit their family home and all their money. And the girls will have to marry other men outside of their home. but it's definitely, you know what really helps, I've noticed when I reread something, is that if I watch, after my first reading, if I watched other videos since that talked about the book, and that really helps me notice things I didn't notice the first time. Like, there's things I've noticed, I've acknowledged in this book that I might not have acknowledged on my own before. How Steve Donahue's video, a couple years ago, he did a read-along of Pride and Prejudice, and he talked about Miss Bennet, and how people are very critical of her, because she's very silly and very, pushy about getting her daughters, men interested in her daughters. But, as I've said, and I think I've already talked about this, unless I'm just thinking about what I've said to myself when I've conversed with myself, or thought about it myself, that Miss Bennet, she's not doing anything any different than any other mother would. I mean, they have no choice. Because, like, there's no male, they don't have a brother. So, their money, their family fortune will go to the first male relative in their family. So, either one of them has to marry this male relative, or they have to marry rich men. So, her mom is obnoxious and silly, and just, you kind of understand what she's going, you kind of get it, and I also feel bad for her, especially because her husband, Mr. Bennet, just seems not to care. I mean, even though he surprises, and he does love his children, especially Lizzie, who's the favorite, because she's so much like him. But he just seems like whatever about it. Very, like, he doesn't care as much as she does. Because he's not the one, he doesn't have to put as much effort as his wife and daughters do. And, so, I mean, I do also get his frustrations and annoyance with his wife. Especially as someone who's very introverted and would rather be in my room reading my book, or if I go somewhere reading, if I'm at the pool, I don't want anyone to bother me. Sometimes my dad will meet some friends when he takes me to the pool, and he'll start talking to them, and they'll be like, oh, do you want to come sit with us? Because they'll see me sitting by myself. They'll be like, oh, do you want to come sit with us? Oh, come join us. It's like, no, I'm good. I want to read my book. Are you not getting that kind of thing? Like, I clearly am reading a book, and they're all like, oh, just come sit with us. And it's like, and I can't read at the same time if I'm sitting with them, because they'll be talking the whole time, and it'll be a distraction. Like, I can barely read with the radio on. With the radio on in the background. So it's like, no, I don't want to sit with you. I mean, it was very sweet and very nice of you to invite me, but I'm perfectly fine. I'm not lonely. I'm not, I'm shy. I'm afraid to approach people. It's like, no, because my dad is sitting there anyway. So I have no problem going over there. I might not say a lot if I wanted to go over there. I'd go over there, but I might not say a lot, but still, I have no problem. I'll come over there because I'm comfortable as long as my dad is right there. But no, if I'm reading, I want to read, and I can't read around people. Like, when they're, like, right there. I mean, yes, at the pool, obviously, there's people everywhere, but if I'm sitting on a table with people, then they'll be right next to me, so I will not be able to concentrate. So I was, like, thinking, no, I don't want to socialize. I just want to read my book. And people don't seem to get that. So it's like, so I kind of understand where Mr. Bennet is coming from. But he is their provider, and he's their father and husband, and it's like, he has to do something. So he can't just sit there and not do anything, which he does. He does surprise them. I mean, like, when Miss Bennet brought up Mr. Bingley has come, and he's an eligible bachelor and everything, and it seemed like the husband, Mr. Bennet, was like, oh, whatever, okay, like, I don't care. But then, and Miss Bennet is annoyed, and she's like, very passive-aggressive, like, oh, I guess we won't. It's a waste of time, because we'll never meet Mr. Bingley. He will never come over. And then Mr. Bennet is like, actually, I did call him, and we did hang out, and I did invite him to come over at some point. So occasionally he does surprise us. So I think he does care to an extent. And like I said, I get kind of understand both of them, where they're both coming from. I also, because I'm going to read the other Bennet sister, I did mark a couple times where Mary says something, because the other Bennett sister is about Mary and her perspective on the events of this book, and then after what happens at the end of this book, we get Mary's story of what happens to her and if she finds a husband. So I marked a few lines of where she says something. Let me see if I can find any of them. Long introductions. I always skip the introductions and stuff. Well, this is not something that Mary says, but what say you? This is when their father's actually saying something to her. What say you, Mary, for you are the young lady of deep reflection. I know and read great books and many extracts. Mary wished to say something very sensible, but knew not how. Like, I feel like Mary seems to be, she is smart, but she doesn't know how to, she's not as clever and quick-witted as Elizabeth. And she can't come up with, clever things to say. And which I totally, I totally get that, not knowing how to, explain how you feel about something and how to really express yourself and say something clever. And, wishing that you could say something clever but not being able to come up with something. So here's an actual quote from Mary Bennett. So, Lizzie is talking to Charlotte Lucas, and they're kind of critiquing Darcy. This is after the first ball, and, how he was kind of standoffish and just ignored people and didn't want to dance with any of the girls, and they say he's very proud. And Miss Lucas is, like, she's talking about she's fine. His pride doesn't, she gets his pride. She gets why he's so proudful. But of course, Elizabeth, normally she could forgive him for being a proud person, but because he kind of criticized her or things, she was like, I can't forgive that because he wounded my own pride. So, Mary just adds this little comment where she's like, pride, observed Mary, who piqued herself upon the solidity of her reflections, is a very common failing, I believe, but all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common indeed, that human nature is particularly prone to it, and that there are very few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self-complacency, on the score of some quality or other real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though words are often used synonymously. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves. Vanity to what we would have others think of. Which I very much agree with. And it made me also think of, in the original Charmed, there was an episode from season 3 where the girls get infected by this demon's sin balls. They have the different sins, like the 7 deadly sins: vanity, envy, greed, gluttony, lust, all those, and one of them is pride, of course. And then, Prue, the oldest sister, gets infected with pride, and by the end of it, she's been kidnapped by the demon, and she's taunting him, and is like, and basically sacrifices herself for the glory of Prue, as Piper puts it later, and she ends up, and the demon gets annoyed, and he kind of says to Piper, overhears him saying, "Pride is the one sin you can't beat." And I think, and she comes to the conclusion that she thinks he means that, like, nothing you do, for everything you do, do in your prideful state is really more, it's more for you. It's never, even if it's something good that you do to help others, you're doing it to make yourself look good, to make yourself feel proud of you. So it's the one sin you can't beat, because it's not, you can never commit a selfless act when you're for pride. But yeah, that whole scene made me think of that a little bit. But it's always fun to read Jane Austen's books. I mean, I'm not a big romance reader. I'd rather just watch the on-screen romance. But Jane Austen's books are, fun. Are really. Which is the other thing. I was making a comment about, I was watching, I cannot, is not Jess Owens, but I cannot remember, Books and Bow Ties, or I forget her name. But she was talking about, like, it was a video where she talked about the authors that she's never going to read because there are things about them that she doesn't like and is not comfortable with. So she's talking about all the authors that she doesn't read. And she also mentioned, she talks about how she does not like reading romance. And I made a comment that, I also am the same way. I don't like reading romance normally, most of the time. And it's because I need more. But I also but I do like watching, like, movies and stuff, like rom-coms and everything. And I feel like I should have mentioned that I do read books like Jane Austen's. And I do read Jane Austen because all of her books have romance in it. So, but there's just something special about her writing about, like, her works. And then, there are some, but yeah, so I always feel, when I make comments like that, I gotta mention, but, at the same time, I do read, or I do check this out or whatever. So I shouldn't have mentioned that. But anyway, covers, with these classics, they always have these paintings for the covers, and it's just always so weird, because sometimes they don't even make sense with the book. I mean, I guess this one could kind of work, because, this could be Elizabeth, this could be Jane and Elizabeth, and maybe that could be their dad, or Mr. Darcy, I guess. I don't know. I mean, and it's always funny when I see this particular painting on another book. Like, I think they've used that in another one of Jane Austen's works. So that's always funny. Like, I'm like, recognize the painting being used in other works. But, yeah, so hopefully I will get some progress in Jane Austen July. I really want to keep going with it. So after this, I'm going to read Northanger Abbey. And I did, before we went to visit my sister, I did start reading Jane Austen, Her Life and Letters, which the first part talked about the family before, the family before the Austen, the Austens that we know, like her father's grandfather or great grandfather, all those relatives before Jane, before Jane and her family. So and then the next chapter does get to them and starts talking about them, but so I did read a little bit more Lord of the Rings. I finally read the chapter on Shortcut to Mushrooms, which a lot more happens in the book in that chapter. The book is very much more meandering with the hobbits than in the original. There's a sense of urgency in the movie Peter Jackson's movie, there's actually like while the original book, there's a lot more, like there's a little more lackadaisicalness with the hobbits. They're not in a rush. Like Frodo waits forever to leave. He waits until his 50th birthday to leave, which again he doesn't want to. He's not the kind, he doesn't want to leave his cozy home. He's very content. But like I said, it's very different from what the movie, which yeah, Peter Jackson definitely like took away some of the more, he took out the unnecessary stuff, all the fat, you could say, of this story to make it more digestible as a movie. But like, and actually the shortcut to mushrooms, that actual chapter, they do stick around for a while, and they only, and Mary's not even with them in the book. It's just Sam, Frodo, and Pippin, and they end up stopping at the farmer's house, Farmer Maggot's house, and hang out there for a few hours, and I think stay the night there, and maybe not, so they spend a lot more time there. And then later, when they leave, they run into Mary, and Farmer Maggot leaves them with Mary, so we can take them. And then they end up running into elves, a small group of elves that did know Bilbo. Which I do not know if they were in The Hobbit or not. I cannot remember the thing, because it's been a long time since I read The Hobbit. So, and they hang out with them and go to their place, and then, so that's not, Rivendell is not the only place where they hang out with elves. They hang out with them again, and just, they give them food, really good food, and, and they stay the night with them, and then eventually start walking again, continue their journey. And you meet the Ringwraiths, and the guys in black, in the black cloaks and everything. And like, Farmer Maggot is like, I don't think I should tell you. And I'm just thinking, tell him, because he needs to know. It's like, you're so scared. It's like, I know you're scared of these guys, but I think he needs to know what's going on. But he's like, oh, I'm worried that you'll change your mind, or all of this will scare you too much. Like, it's better if he knows what he's dealing with, who's chasing him. I think that's a lot smarter. And it was really frustrating that they kept saying actually, it was not Farmer Mag, it's the Gildor or Gildal. I cannot remember what the guy's name is. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, or do they meet the elves first and then they get to Farmer Maggot? Yeah, maybe they meet the elves first and then they get to Farmer Maggot. Yeah, because the chapter ends with them. I'm trying to... Yeah, Gildor. Okay, so they meet the elves first, and then they get to Farmer Maggots. So they meet the Gildor, and he's like, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to scare you. And it's like, and I just kept being frustrated with that, because it was like, I think he needs to know. He's better if he knows. You can, like, it's always annoying when characters are like, oh, I think that person needs to tell you. Like, I understand if it's a personal thing, but if it's like, someone's chasing you or something's coming after you, then I think the characters need to know. But yeah, so there's a lot more meandering, a lot more characters, like minor characters we meet throughout in this that she didn't even include. I mean, there's obviously the infamous Tom Bombadil in The Hobbit that we don't meet. That is not in the movie. And I think a lot of people are hoping that maybe he'll make an appearance and the new Lord of the Rings series that's going to be on Amazon. So, so I read a little bit, but not a lot of this. I really only brought it to show my brother-in-law because when I messaged him about Star Wars before we left, he was saying that he was thinking about me and asking me if I read the series, which, because now I only listened to it on audiobook just last year, but I've seen the movies, so I brought this to show him, and was talking about how if he wants to get into it, maybe he should try the audiobooks first, or maybe watch the movie before he reads the book, which I know that is sinful and blasphemous, but I think sometimes that can help, especially with older stories, that it might be better to watch a movie adaptation first. But so the book I DNF'd, by the way, is Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. And I had been warned before that I wouldn't like this, so I had gotten rid of a copy that my sister gave me. And then I ended up hearing, like, Emmy from Emma Reed's, I always can never remember if that's her channel. I just watched a vlog of hers recently, but just an hour ago. But this is one of her favorite books. I was like, I'll give it another shot. So, because the last time I didn't actually ever read it, I just went by someone telling me I won't like it. So I bought it, and I only got, I only spent like $4 on it. So, or no, $3. $3 on it. When I bought it, and I tried to read it while while I was visiting my sister, and I just was not excited to read it. It's like this guy, Jose Arcadio Bandina, who's married to Ursula, and he has a bunch of kids, with different women, and it's kind of about their family. And it's a very character-driven story, but I just couldn't get into it. It was kind of, I hate to say it, but boring for me. I wasn't excited to read. I wasn't engaged in it. And as I said, my reason for why I DNF'd it, it feels like that book that, you are assigned to, that, you're given to read over the summer for school, and then, you only read it because you have to, but you're bored out of your mind and you just want to read the Cliff Notes. That's what it felt like when I was reading this. It felt like I was only reading it, because, I felt like it's Colombian, and, it was like, I feel like I should read this, but I just couldn't get into it. And I didn't agree with those reviews that, I remember one review I was reading on Goodreads where he was like, I don't know if it was he or she, I cannot remember, but this person's review was like, I think the only reason it became a classic is because it was confusing, so those old white dudes decided to make it a classic. And it's like, I don't think that's the case. I think some people can see something special about these kinds of books and can get into it, but others just can't. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think either side should judge the other, whether you like it or not. I don't think you should be judged by each other about the book. There's some classics that just aren't meant for other people. Doesn't mean we're stupid. Doesn't mean that, you just don't get it. Now, there are times I've let slip that phrase for reasons, but mostly I don't agree with that excuse of saying, someone just doesn't get it. I think they just have to not appreciate it or like it. It's not their thing. Although I think I did use the phrase in the why my reason for DNFing. But I don't mean it as in, someone, if you don't get it, you're dumb or anything. I just mean that sometimes you just can't appreciate it. You can't get into it. Not everybody, can really, and, I'm very plot-driven. I still think I'm very plot-driven, but there have been exceptions where books that I was, someone else said it doesn't have a plot, but I still personally enjoyed it. Aaron Morgenstern's 2 books. They don't really have, or at least the Starless Sea, some people said it doesn't have a plot. And there was one other book that I recently read that I absolutely loved that I was told that it does say, people have said that it doesn't have a plot, but it's, I didn't love, correction, it wasn't a book that I absolutely loved, but it was a book that I thought I liked it better than most people that don't like it. And that's Bridge of Clay, and that one really doesn't have a plot, per se. So I still think I'm plot driven, but I think it depends on the story and my mood. But either way, life's too short, and I have so many other books that I want in my collection I want to read, and I'm also down to, like, feeling the pressure of, okay, I'm going to read more books so that I can find out if there's any books that I can donate. Because I'm running out of space. So, I still have a good chunk on my other shelf near my bed. So, yeah, so I'm DNFing this. And then, like, I decided to borrow this. I really was thinking about The Invisible Man. Not the H.G. Wells novel, but the other one. I cannot remember the guy's name that wrote it. I think it's Wright. Or, maybe I'm thinking about this guy's name. But I do not remember what The Invisible Man is called, the author of that one. But, like I said, not the H.G. Wells science fiction novel, but the other one. But I cannot remember. But anyway, I ended up spawning this, which is Native Son. And my sister doesn't have a big collection, but she has some books. Of course, don't worry though, if my niece and nephews need some books that my sister doesn't have, my brother and sister-in-law don't have, well, I might have them. But anyway, so this is Native Son, and I'm gonna go read the back of it. Right from the start, Baker Thomas had been headed for jail. He could have been for assault or petty larceny. By chance, it was for murder and rape. Native Son tells the story of this young black man caught in a downward spiral after he kills a young white woman in a brief moment of panic. Set in Chicago in the 1930s, Wright's powerful novel is as unsparing reflection of poverty and feelings of hopelessness experienced by people in the inner cities across the country for what it means to be black in America. So, let me see if it has a list of. Okay, so it's not Invisible Man, so obviously he's not the author of The Invisible Man. I need to look up The Invisible. Ooh, the restored text established by the Library of America. Perennial classics. That's what these are. And that's actually what the copy of 100 Years of Solitude is. It's a perennial classic. I kind of like I really like this cover. It's really pretty. But anyway, so I decided to get this. It was either this or Beloved, so I will get Beloved next time. I might get Beloved next time for my sister. Okay, so I'm still kind of trying to decide to pick out my books. Like I said, I think I'm gonna continue with the letters of John and Abigail Adams because they are just letters. But I'm gonna continue reading, participating in Jane Austen July. So next, after Pride and Prejudice reread, I might continue with this one, Jane Austen, Her Life and Letters, a Family Record. Which I could not find this particular edition, which was really annoying. I always get annoyed when I can't find the exact edition. But I am on the next chapter is Warren Hastings and the Hancocks, 1752 to 1794. And I also am going to. So I'm still kind of trying to decide what I want to read. Like, I still kind of want to stick to the whole theme of water and heat for the summer. My summer reading, the last 2 months of summer. at least include books with those elements. Like, I did buy Firestarter by Stephen King, which apparently that movie was bad. Although, I feel like a lot of Stephen King's adaptations are like 50-50 if they'll go well or not. And of course, he's known for bad endings. Although I don't think all his endings are bad, you know. But I do get his criticism, and I think at this point he just laughs about it, you know, because like in his movies he always makes fun in the screenplays where he always kind of makes fun of it. I mean, like I think he laughs about it, but like all of his like in It Chapter 2 they kind of make fun of it with because Bill Denroth becomes a writer. And in the movie, they kind of made fun of it where, well, yeah, because, yeah, he probably does just laugh about it because he is, of course, has a small part in the movie as the guy. He works at like, an antique shop or something. And he kind of makes fun of, and he says, you know, he recognizes Bill as a writer. He's coming, Bill spots his bike from his childhood in the little shop and he decides to buy it. And he recognizes it, and he says at one point, I think Bill asked you want an autograph, and he was like, you know, nah, I didn't like the ending. Thought that was cute, that was funny. But yeah, I want to read. So either way, I want to read Firestarter, but then I'm also thinking about The Wastelands because again, that's one of the other issues I have is when it's a book or it's part of a book that's in a series where, you know, like in the Dark Tower series, I had read the first 3 books and then I started to read book 4 and then I put it down for a long time, didn't pick it up until years later and then realized, oh, I should start because it's been so long. So I'm always worried when that same thing happens. You know, that's always the other problem is I always feel like, okay, I need to get to the books that I don't want these books to be sitting here anymore. I need to finish them. But then but usually a lot of those books are the long series or longer books. Like The Way of Kings, for instance, a super long book. So, but I always feel proud after when I read at least books that are like 800, you know, plus pages. Like Elliot Brooks's book, Peace and Turmoil it's 100 chapters and it's that's the 714 pages, so not 800 but close. So 700, and then I was so happy when I finally finished a couple years ago, or it might have been just a year ago, The Count of Monte Cristo, when it really helped listening to an audiobook. So I was very proud. I was very excited because I had that book on my shelf for years, way before I even moved here. So where I live now. So I was very happy that I finally finished it. But at the same time, it's always so weird, especially if I've been with a book for so long. It's been sitting there unread and not finished for so long that it just always feels weird, like unsettling almost. It's like it's somewhere, as I always say to people, and I think I've said on here before as well, that somewhere between feeling like relief and also feeling a little like sad that I'm done with the book, but relief that I finally finished it. But then it's just like, what do I do now? You know? So it's not exactly, I mean, maybe that's a small bit of a tease of a slump, but it doesn't last long. I'm just not someone who can, like, I'm always, you know, and it's not because, and it's more one of these things where I love reading, I always want to be reading, so I always feel like I want to jump into another book, and it's not as if, you know, I jump into a book right that second. You know, I mean, sometimes if, like, I'm at the pool and I bring 2 books with me and I finish a book at the pool and I can dip into the other book, then I will. But I do have a few hours in between where I'm not reading. So, I don't know, most of the time I don't just jump into a new book right after. I do write a review and just write an actual review and then I don't read until I go get in bed, because then I watch, Netflix or TV or something. But anyway. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna call this video. I'll have to think about that. But I mean, of course, by the time you see this video, 4th of July will be over. I could call it my 4th of July update video, reading update. But 4th of July, like I said, will be over by the time you guys watch this. Probably by the time you guys see this. But anyway, so if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos. I hope you are staying happy, healthy, and safe, and enjoying your reading. And if you, live in I think it's the northern hemisphere, then you're enjoying your summer. And I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.